So I literally just finished catching up on Governor Newsom's press conference saying that students K through 12 will be required to be vaccinated against COVID-19 in order to avail themselves of their right for public education. And that means that pending FDA approval, that could be as early as January, as late as next fall. And it's a cliche for a reason, but as California goes, so goes the nation. So please don't look at us and shake your head and go, oh, those crazy Californians. Guys, this is it. I'm afraid to tell you this. I'm sorry to tell you this. But now is the time for good and quiet people to get loud, to stand up and get loud, because it's not going to stop here. It won't stop here. It can't stop here. We've been watching this happen for a year and a half. We're a year and a half into 15 days to slow the spread. You are grossly naive if you think it stops here. And you are terribly naive if you think that this isn't coming to your state because you're in a safe state. Guess what's happening to Californians now that we're under the thumb of Governor Newsom? We're moving, and we're moving all across the United States. And whether you like it or not, some of the idiot voters are coming your way too. And they're going to vote for the things that they voted for here. And they're going to bring those things to your state. So unless you can find a way to erect a wall around your state that has lasers that zaps Californians coming in, you better be prepared to take your stand now. So here's my suggestion. This weekend, you sit down with your spouse, your significant other, any adults in your family who make decisions for your whole family, and maybe even your children if you deem them to be old enough. And you guys decide on what your lines are, where you're going to draw your lines, where you're going to say, okay, we've had enough. We're going to get in this game. We're going to start pushing back. And it's different for everyone. I'm not going to dictate that for you. For me today, this is my line. But for you, it might be something different. But decide now, because what will happen is you'll start to bump up against those lines and you'll get wishy-washy. You'll say, oh, well, but it's just a compromise. It's just this one thing. It's just this other thing. If I just do this one last thing, it'll be fine. And before you know it, you're pushed all the way to the fringes of where you said you would never be. So make your choices now so that when you bump up against that line, you can recognize it clearly. And you and your family can stand toe to toe on that line, right up against it, and stand up straight and look the enemy in the eye and say, here and no further. It is time. And I know it's not fair because a lot of you, all you want to do is go to work and come home and love on your family and mind your own damn business. But guess what? That's what they've been depending on. That's what people like Gavin Newsom depend on. People like you and me who are too busy just trying to make it day to day to care what they're doing in their little bubbles of government and their coastal bubbles or whatever other bubbles that they have encased themselves in. We have to be able to push back against that. As much as we desire to just live and let live, we are not being allowed that option. And so in order to be able to return to that option, we are going to have to force our way into this conversation and not leave until we get what we want. So yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah, we're all going to have to make choices that we don't want to make. I love my daughter's public school. I would love to keep her in there. She loves it. Her friends are there. The teachers are great. We're in a great district. I have nothing bad to say about my daughter's specific public school. They are fantastic. But maybe we might have to make some other considerations. I don't know how this is going to go down. But I do know that it's unrealistic for us to believe that we are going to be able to keep living this existence where we just imagine everyone's minding their own business. Everybody ain't minding their own business no more. So now we got to go out there and remind people that you got to let us mind our own business and you mind yours. And that's how we're all going to get along in this country. It is time to take your stand. It is time to make your decision. It is time to get uncomfortable. The Montgomery bus boycotts lasted 381 days. Do you think that there were many people along the way who wished they could quit? Don't you think that there were so many people who said, you know what, I got a family to feed. So yeah, I don't want to compromise this, but I got to get on this bus because I got a family to feed. Tons of people. You're not a terrible person for having those feelings or thinking those things. Those are legitimate considerations. But what they also did in the Montgomery bus boycott is that they banded together. They pooled their vehicles. They pooled their resources. They pooled their money for gas. They formed groups. They formed private driving circles. They helped people get bikes. They walked to work in groups. They did whatever they had to do to make sure that people had what they need and that they didn't have to fall back on this corrupt system that had nothing but hatred for them. Our government hates you if you want to make your own decision for your child. Gavin Newsom hates you. He hates your child. He does, because you want to make decisions for your child. You want to make decisions for your family. He hates you for that. He doesn't even know my daughter's name. He doesn't know what color her hair is, what she likes to watch on TV, who her friends are, what her health status is. He knows nothing about her. There's no way on earth he loves my daughter more than I do. So you better rest assured that I have done my research on this, and I am not comfortable with forcing my daughter to get a vaccination that has yet to be proven. Give me some peer-reviewed studies. Give me a few years, 2 years. My God, 2 years. 3 years. I'm not asking for the moon. I'm asking for a small modicum of logic, data, science, research. And for that, I'm the enemy. It's time to pack up, people. You got to go find where that line is and go and camp out on that line. We are up against it. It will not stop here. If they can force you to do this, they can force you to do anything. This was the whole problem with our argument with universal health care in the first place. And if you don't think that this isn't a backdoor into universal health care, you are very naive. Because once you give the government this type of authority, it will never be relinquished. And we've seen that since March of 2020. They have continued to push, continued to move the goalposts. Now we're looking at boosters being the sign of full vaccination. So it doesn't even matter if you got on board the first time. If you don't keep getting on board, you're going to be the enemy. Before long, almost everyone's going to be the enemy unless you stand up and make yourself heard as a viable citizen of this nation. I'm sorry, but that's how it's going to have to be. So figure out where your lines are, figure out where your battles are, and figure out what you're willing to do to stand up for freedom in this country. Because it won't be long before we won't have the ability to stand up in the ways that we take for granted. Let me read to you this quote from Winston Churchill. If you will not fight for right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may come to a moment when you will have to fight with all odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may be an even worse fate. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than to live as slaves. How do you want to live? I know my choice.